Session of BIDA and Council. Today, of course, is February 10th. The time is 6:32. And I'm Jamel McKenzie, the chair of BIDA.
I'm Bianca Motley-Broom, the mayor of College Park. It is 6:32 and we are calling our council meeting to order with all council members present.
And at this time, we would like to do the roll call for our BIDA and even our council members, everyone that's present. We'd like to hear first from BIDA council and then any of our guests that are on, or staff, and then our guests. And again, I'm Jamel McKenzie.
Good evening, City of College Park. I'm Celissa Jefferson, your vice chair, representing Ward 4.
Anyone else? I know we have some more people. We're doing introductions. Can't hear you if you're speaking.
Hi, this is Leslie Zen, BIDA at large.
Good evening, Anita Brown-Cadis, representing Ward 3, BIDA.
Ken Allen, Ward 3, representing BIDA as Mayor Pro Tem and Council as well.
Ambrose Clay, Ward 1, City Council.
Joe Karn, Councilman, Ward 2.
Roderick Gay, Council Member, Ward 4.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mercedes Miller, the interim city manager for College Park.
R.D. Jones, executive director, Clearly College Park.
Tabitha Beasley, administrative assistant, economic development, and assistant secretary treasurer for BIDA, City of College Park.
Oakley, Main Street manager for the City of College Park.
Hello, everyone. Denise Cole, interim executive director, GICC, Gateway Center Arena.
Hello, Althea Lloyd Bradley, director of finance and accounting, City of College Park.
Good evening, Winston Denmark, city attorney.
Good evening, Dan Lee, attorney for BIDA.
Okay, we heard you call first.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
You want to finish?
I'm done.
Good evening, Shavela Moore, city clerk, City of College Park.
Good evening, Ed
Good
Wall.
evening.
Go ahead. You go first, ma'am. Ms. Ty.
Good evening. I'm Darnetta Tice, incoming city manager for the City of College Park.
Welcome. We look forward to having you down here. My name is Ed Wall, and I'm financial advisor to BIDA and the city.
Okay, I believe we have some guests that we'd like for you to let us know who you are joining us tonight.
I'm Janet Dickens from College Park First United Methodist.
Anthony G. Concept House Holdings.
Sherry Ong, CEO of Good Places.
Ada Deitman, Concept House Holdings.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. I think that we all have made our introductions. It's great to have you on the call, at the meeting actually tonight. And we're going to move on to our agenda item number 3, which is the review and approval of minutes for our January BIDA regular session meeting.
I've got a couple of changes. I'd like to mention on packet page 5, row 61, it says Councilman Joe Karn, and it's C-A-R-N, not C-A-R-N-E. The next page, packet page 6, 93, it talks about a vote. I voted yes. There is did not have my name down, but I voted yes.
Okay.
Packet page 8, line 201. It says that it was close to, and I think that's supposed to be 1,000, but it looks like 100 with a comma and then 2 zeros. Should be another 0 in there.
Okay.
Okay, I have a few. Councilman Allen, for the same action item that you're referring to, this is packet page 5 and packet page 6, lines 92 through 96. This was when the motion was made for secretary treasurer and we voted. I actually listened to the recording for last month's meeting, and you were recorded as abstaining. I mean, actually voting.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
in that vote. So
Okay.
yeah, you have. So actually, it's if you check the tape, he did abstain.
Okay.
And line number 138 on that same page should just be amended to say Chairman McKenzie called for a motion to approve. The following sentence actually fix it because it says so moved by Vice Chair, but just want to make sure that we get that clear, that I did not make the motion, but I called for the motion. And that's
Okay.
things that I have. Okay, are there any other changes or revisions to our agenda for last month's meeting? Okay, if they're not, then I'd like to entertain a motion from one of our BIDA board members to approve the minutes for our January 13th, 2022 meeting.
So moved.
All right, second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please just kind of raise your hand too and say aye so we can see who you are.
Aye.
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 Thank you. Aye. Just makes it easier for Sabritha to see. Thank you. Okay, at this time, are there any additions, deletions, or amendments or changes to the agenda for tonight? Okay, well, I guess that means no. So we're going to just continue on with new business. And I just want to preface this discussion, these discussions by saying that my goal for the next 10 months as the chairman or for the chairmanship for the next 10 months is to ensure that protocols and understanding is put in place to ensure that our BIDA board knows its role and its function within the city of College Park, and that we in turn fulfill that role and that we function in the manner and with the intent that this authority was created to operate in. And so the purpose of several of the items that we'll be discussing on the agenda this evening are to begin that process. So we're going to start off with our Georgia Development Authority discussion this evening. And just want to call your attention to some of the items that you received in your packet. In the packet under this section, we do have the actual amendment or the information that discusses the amendment to the Georgia Constitution, the Georgia State Constitution, when the development authorities were actually created. And so those of you, I'm sure that everybody that's on the board has already read this information, but it's just important that we remember, that BIDA is created as a corporate, a body, a corporate, and a public. That's what it says to us in item number 2. And that our purpose is to attain development and promote for the public good and general welfare, trade, commerce, industry, and employment opportunities, and to promote the general welfare of the community of College Park. And I think that's important. I also want to remind us as we continue with tonight's conversation that it does say that BIDA may exercise the power of eminent domain and may issue revenue bonds, but only with the approval of mayor and city council of College Park, because we're going to kind of revisit our relationship. So basically kind of wanted, I've been pretty much talking a lot, last year when I was chair about development authority.
Excuse me.
Yes. Leslie? Leslie, we can't hear you.
I can't hear you. People having trouble hearing?
Can't hear you.
Yeah, you're frozen. You're frozen. We're not hearing you. So you're not hearing me because there's something going on with your system. You may want to call, you might want to come out and go out and come back in. Because everyone else can hear me. Is that correct?
Okay.
Leslie, before you go, when you came on the first time
internet.
during
Okay, sorry.
introductions, you had an echo. And I think you may, if you turn off your reception of the meeting, you might be better.
I'm sorry. Okay.
That's better.
Yeah.
I had it
Now
on
you're-
mute the whole time. I still couldn't hear.
No. I'm talking, if you're monitoring the meeting on your web browser or something like that.
No, I'm
You
not.
had an echo before.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Well, basically kind of wanted, and we have been working as a board. Last year, we started with our strategic planning retreat, and grateful for the CEO, including the information, the results from that retreat. And I wanted to kind of go over a couple of the things that are priority next steps, because I think that's important as we continue as, in the business of being a development authority this year. And some of the things that we said that we wanted to do was we wanted to establish policies and procedures and internal controls in small bites, that we wanted to create an agenda. Oh, this is actually on packet page 25, item 5AA, if you want to kind of follow along with me. But we said we wanted to create an agenda as a group, engage in education and training, retraining on economic and real estate development opportunities, issues, strategies, financial tools through BIDA. We also said that we wanted to clarify the role of the board, who we are, what we do, and develop a consensus on how the board can best serve College Park. Then we talked about engaging in education and training as a group instead of just individually. Conducting listening sessions with real estate developers on how to better attract and support project investment in College Park. Conduct a scan of Development Authority best practices and compare and assess BIDA against those best practices. Create communication tools for the public that explain BIDA structure, role, and financial tools. Identify goals, priorities, values, guiding principles to guide BIDA in decision making. Create a shared vision of desired outcomes, including the essential actions required to achieve our vision, and produce either individually or through a partnership, a College Park business directory, and or develop other focused methods to increase support for non-Main Street businesses. And what I would like to propose that we do is, because we really need to do this. We met, and we also need to have a follow-up strategic planning retreat. However, I would like to suggest today that we form a committee from our board members to actually start engaging in the different things that we said that we want to do, because a lot of times we have the meeting, and the meeting we're discussing the business at hand, but we still need to do something outside of our meetings to start ensuring that we're working on these objectives that we have set. This is what we said. This is not what the individuals that held the retreat, but this is what we said. So what I would like to see is, again, the formation of a committee of possibly 3 members that will take on just actively starting to pursue some of these things that we've mentioned, or just making sure that we are dealing with these issues. If within even a workshop, we may need to create a workshop session for this. Is there anybody that might be interested in that? If so, please let me get your feedback or give me your feedback on how you think we should proceed in being able to get to the goals, or to reach those goals that we have set for ourselves as a board.
This is Anita Cadis, Ward 3. I'd like to suggest that we're so small as a group anyway, that maybe we work in pairs to do two things that would, for me, would be a priority. One would be education and training on those several items in our list that have to do with helping us to know more. And the second would be, and actually the first priority, establishing policies, procedures, and internal controls in conjunction with establishing who we are vis-a-vis other entities, particularly the mayor and council. And I mean, we just need to carve out and identify who we are. So I would suggest 2 subcommittees and moving forward simultaneously. And that we establish some regularity in terms of addressing these issues. We only meet once a month anyway. Maybe we can have a second meeting that's shorter, but very focused on one of these goals.
Thank you.
And I'm interested in working on either one.
Right. I thank you so much. Celissa, were you getting ready to say something?
Yes, I concur
I'd be
with,
happy to work.
Oh, who said that? Is that Leslie or who was that? Leslie, was that you or? She froze again. Okay, Celissa, go on. Leslie, when she froze.
that's fine. No, I was going to, I concur with Anita, being able to work within subcommittees. My focus is establishing more protocols and internal controls. And if need be, if we have to do this with, I don't know, if with a special meeting or if that's required, then I say definitely. And then also how we conduct listening sessions with real estate developers. So if we can just establish some protocols, internal controls and guidelines around that, as well as the ongoing continuing education. And then once we have met and decided how it's going to be implemented, if it can be instituted into the bylaws as well.
Great, thank you so much. Leslie, we didn't hear what you were saying before when Anita was speaking.
Oh, I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's just a little choppy.
I'm trying to get my internet reset, so I may need to bump off and join back. Okay. I said that I would be happy to participate in these.
Okay, we got what she was saying, the gist. Anyone else have any more comments on what we're discussing here? How about if we, what we can do, ask our executive director, or if you would simply get us the listing of all of these priority steps again, and then we can, as members, determine what our interest might be. Because I know we're probably not going to get it done now, but at least to start looking to see, so you read this and then you decide what your area of interest is, and then hopefully it'll work out where we'll find 2 persons, as Anita has said, no more than 3. But if we're going to break it down, that will work on a few of these at a time. So it's not an action item. This was just something to just suggest. But Artie, if you could get this to us, or maybe there can be some type of a survey set up where we can respond to it and let it be known what our area of interest in terms of pursuing these goals this year for us as a board. And some of these items we may even address this evening, but there's still a lot of things here that were important to us, and they were important to us, but I also believe that they are important. So the next thing that I wanted to
Madam Chair, could I inject one little thing?
Yes, sir.
I just caution you and the board members that meetings of subgroups could formulate a quorum and would be subject to the open meetings rules. So you need to be careful of the number, and up to and including polling of members on issues that seek to draw a decision that are not in a public meeting would be prohibited. So that's just one caveat to having committee meetings. open records rules, open meetings rules would apply to it.
Thank you, Dan, for that clarification. And so really, if we were do committees, I think it would be safe to stick to 2, and we won't do any type of polling. It'll just be persons getting back or letting it be known what committee you have an interest in working in, or maybe you'll pick 3 or 4 choices because we have a few, and then we'll just try, do our best to set up those subcommittees with 2. Well, it's got to be at least 2 people, or it's not a committee. So a subcommittee that is legal within our legislation.
You could have 3 without being a quorum, can't you?
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I was thinking 3. But again, there's so many things here that maybe a committee of 2 and each 2 have 2 or 3 things. And so I guess let's just see once you decide what your interests are, and then we can see how to break these up. But they will be, Dan Lee, they will definitely be within the structure of the law.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
What you may want to do, you did have a strategic planning session, and you guys picked a number of goals that you had, but it's not necessary that you accomplish all the goals in 1 year. So you may just want to say, I'll put a poll out and you guys will identify the top 3 things that you want to address in this year. And then from that, I can put it out to the committees and find out who would like to participate on these committees. If you spread yourself thin, you run the chance of, not being able to address everything or not do a quality job in those things that you set out to do. That's just a suggestion.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you, Artie. In fact, as I'm looking at the form that I was actually reading to you from, it does show how our votes were. So perhaps we should go with the first 6, because the first one that I read, we actually had 5 votes in favor of that. And then the following was 4, then 3 and 3. But then we have 2 and 2. So maybe we just start off with the first, well, either the first 4 or the first 6. Is anybody else looking at this form right now? I know that Celissa had mentioned that she had an interest in conducting a listening session, so I didn't want to eliminate that from, but I do think that what Artie is saying makes good sense. If we can get 3 or 4 of these things together, or right, let's pursue from there. So I guess maybe the survey, Artie, would just have the first 6 items for people to select what they would like to work on, and then we can set up some subcommittees based on that.
Got it.
Okay, thank you. The only other situation that we had a couple of other documents that were included in the packet, and the next one that I have here is the Georgia Code. Well, actually, with both of these documents are 2010 Georgia Code, Title 36, Local Government Provisions, applicable to counties and municipal corporations, Chapter 62A, the conduct of members of local authorities for development authorities. The first document is the required training on development and redevelopment programs. And of course, at our first meeting of the year, I emphasized again, and I actually read this piece of legislation, or I guess what you want to call it, this mandate, that all BIDA board members do need to receive their training according to the law within their first 12 months. And I'm glad to say that all of our members are now signed up to receive that training. So we will be looking really good, hopefully by this time for our April meeting. So, but my question for Attorney Lee, or any of our attorneys, or Denmark, is, okay, a lot of times you'll see a statute such as this, and it will tell you what needs to be done, but it doesn't tell you what the consequences are. For instance, if we have, okay, it's saying that a member has to receive training within 12 months. Well, what happens if they don't? Are they still able to vote? Are they legal on the board? I mean, and that's my question. What happens if a year and a half goes, or 2 years, and you're on BIDA? but you have not fulfilled the state mandated training.
The statute would have to reflect what the penalty is, and there's no penalty reflected in the statute. So I would submit to you there's not one, which may sound silly, but I've been in the legislature. There are a lot of laws that come out of there that don't completely present what they wanted to, but that particular statute does not present a penalty for noncompliance.
And I guess it may be up to that local municipality, those who've appointed those members, such as our council, maybe to make that determination. And I just wanted to clarify it because in the last meeting, I said to legally be on BIDA, you would need to have that training. However, what if there's no consequence for a law? What's the purpose of the law? It's not a mandate anymore. It's just a suggestion. It's not a statutory mandate if there are no consequences for it. Anita?
I think in this slide, I had asked about a bill that's before the legislature at this point that sort of pertains to some of the issues that you're discussing. It's House Bill 148, substitute, introduced by Kim Schofield, and it has to do with boards, development boards. And the interest I had in this was because in reading an analysis of it, it said that she raised it because of some issues with boards in her district. So does anyone have any information? I bring it up in the context of this because we're trying to learn about the legislative, and I get a little bit concerned when I see that there's been a bill introduced around development boards. I have a feeling it's about what happened in Atlanta. Offer any insights so that once again, we're sure of where it's a bill to relating to development authorities so as to rename authority boards of directors and do a number of different things. So I place it there. We may not need to discuss it further, but I'd like to ask for more information about this particular House bill.
Attorney Lee, would you look into that? But it hasn't become law yet, right? It's a bill that's being introduced.
It's a bill that's been introduced that's on the agenda. It's a substitute bill and it's introduced by our representative, Kim Schofield. Well, my district anyway.
Yeah, mine too. Yeah.
I'm sure I'd be glad to look into that and get your report on it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Anita. So I guess basically, as I said in the beginning of the meeting, just some clarification, meaning what do we do in the future if we have members that never take their developmental authority training? Is that okay? Like I said, all of our members are scheduled, so this is not pointed towards any of our members, but I think that when we start looking at clarification and being on the same page and why would I take this authority training aside from the fact that somebody told me, if it's not something that I have to do? So it doesn't have to be answered today, but I think it's something, it's not, I don't believe this is something, I do not think this is something, Attorney Lee, correct me if I'm right or wrong. Check me. I don't think it's something that BIDA can decide. I don't think the BIDA board can determine what should happen because we are not the ones that select the board members. But I wanted to bring this up during our joint session, even to bring this to mayor and council, that, what is the criteria? We know that there's expectations for BIDA board members to, first of all, when you're assigned to BIDA, you're thinking you're going to be there for 4 years. So there is the expectation that I'll be on serve for 4 years. But we also know if there's certain violations or certain things or improprieties that are discovered, that a member can be removed. So does this fall amongst that? What do we do? And you don't have to answer now, but I did want to bring it out while we did have this joint session. Okay. So the last piece that I have here is, this was put in our packet, and this is the ethics and conflicts of interest. Attorney Lee, do you want to discuss what this documentation is saying to us?
Chair, I was not clear as to what you wanted to discuss in regards to this. I just, we've had this conversation before about the numbers and chances of conflicts are many. I don't know that we've experienced a problem with it, but I'm not exactly sure what you want me to discuss.
Okay. Well, I didn't, I think that basically we had a situation in January, and there seems to be some confusion on as to ethically where, what the limits are, the boundaries for our BIDA board members. Each of us, when we went through orientation, we were told that we were not to meet with developers, because even though it may not be illegal, meeting one-on-one with a developer, you come out of that meeting and anything can happen. Anything can be said was said that may have not been said. So you're kind of putting yourself in a position that could become problematic. So I wanted to also have, I guess, ethically clarified. And I think this document does kind of address that. I didn't request this particular document, but it was it's in the packet. But I think this is something that says, what those standards are, but it's still not clear. I think, and what I've been asked by board members is, what is it? Do we talk to developers, especially do we speak with developers about projects that I was approached twice in January by developers who had projects that had not yet gone to mayor and council. One may have gone, but then it had to go back and wanted to meet with me. And I stuck to what had been told initially, that I was not supposed to meet with a developer. So I just want to have that clarified in terms of what are we supposed to do?
Is the question, what do you do if a developer who has business before BIDA comes to you and to talk to you?
Yeah.
Is that
and they want to speak to you about the project, not just to speak to you about BIDA, but they want to speak to you specifically about a project that hasn't gone to mayor and council yet, or may have, is coming to BIDA. I see the mayor has her hand raised.
Madam Chair, it was my understanding, based upon Mr. Lee's training that we did, I believe that was in the summer of 2020, that discussions with developers were not themselves forbidden, but that it was necessary for any discussions to be disclosed to this board. Because I believe Attorney Lee said something along the lines of, if you're talking to one of us, you're talking to all of us. And so that level of disclosure would be necessary. Mr. Lee, do I have that?
No, it's exactly right, Mayor. And I would add to that, it's an ethical consideration that you are seen talking to somebody who's going to do business with BIDA, and that's just talking to somebody in and of itself an ethical problem. If you have a business relationship of any kind with one, obviously you'd have to disclose that. But I would submit to you that there's an administrative issue that you need to look at also, and that is points of contact historically, not just at BIDA, but other development authorities, even with the council, go to one designated person, and that is then disseminated to all the members. And so that nothing is lost and every member gains information equally. So that's another reason that you want to move, I almost said herd, developers toward the administrative office. That to me would be the first reason for doing it. And the second one is, and I've had it happen before, you get into a situation with developers and a one-on-one, and developer may think you said something that you didn't say, and it becomes a who said what. So there's just a practical side to it also. And the sharing of information to all the members brings about the best outcome.
So thank you, Attorney Lee. Celista, and then I'm going to make a comment. Celista?
Yes, so thank you, Mayor, for clarifying the disclosure. So I would ask, what is the instrument of disclosure? Is there a recording of the meeting? You know, in my level, my expertise is in real estate and as well as in security and exchange financial management. So how do I leverage, you know, my expertise when I'm speaking with a developer on a project? So I would feel more prone or, you know, more comfortable if that level of disclosure is done through an instrument, like utilizing Zoom and having it be recorded as well as transcripted, so that all parties, you know, all information is conveyed appropriately. And there isn't an issue between what was discussed and what was not discussed, and any strategic matters that could be conducted during that meeting. So being a new board member, what I was told was that our protocol was to refer developers to our economic development department, as well as projects to be approved by mayor and council before it came to BIDA. So I think that protocol clearly it just clearly defines our roles. I like the protocol, but should we deviate from that, I think that it's in our best interest to develop that instrument of disclosure, how the disclosure will be transcribed and, you know, or submitted.
Ms. Jefferson, if I could speak to that, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
The reason for the current protocol is, again, a practical one. If you don't have a conversation with the developer, you don't have to record it. You don't have to Zoom it. You send them to the economic development director, and that you don't have this problem. And I would submit to you, in my tenure here, we haven't had that problem. Part of my job is to keep you out of trouble, and I would submit to you the absolute best way to stay out of trouble is to not talk to them, but to send them to the economic development director. I would also point out, this is a good point, good time to talk about the structure. I think one of the items tonight is talking about the budget. And I think you need to recognize that the structure, or I should say the dynamic between the city government and the development authority can be many different things. And it is all over the state. We see the one with Fulton County where they have a lot of autonomy. They have their own budget. They have their own way of getting into trouble, I would submit to you. But I don't know how they communicate with their appointed government members. The city of Sandy Springs, on the other end, they have one member of the council on the development authority board, and they communicate. They don't necessarily clear every project or any project, but they communicate, and not a project goes by that the mayor and council, it hadn't been part of their plan, if you will. And again, abatements are approved by that council also. So having that go to the economic development director, who is an employee of the city, accomplishes both those things. It maintains that dynamic that it has worked. I submit to you very well, of partnership and cooperation between the governing body of College Park and the development authority, and it keeps you out of trouble having to talk to a developer. So that protocol is a good one in that it works, and it accomplishes the goal of getting all the information to all the members equally, and preventing a member from maybe getting into a briar patch they don't want to get into with, talking to a developer that may not have the best ideas about what's going on.
Attorney Lee, thank you for that. And I'd like to take the executive privilege right now to say that we need to reestablish that protocol, because truthfully speaking, no board member should have any conversation with a developer. So I'm imploring to those of you that are serving right now that the protocol has been and should remain that if a developer comes to you, you send them to the economic development director. And let's think about this. Why would a developer want to speak to one of us as a board member anyway? Okay, any conversation that a developer wants to have with a BIDA board member can be had if they pass the executive, if you pass the executive director, and if it passes through the council, if it comes to BIDA, if it makes it to BIDA, those developers have the opportunity to speak to us as a group. So in order to protect yourself so that you don't have anything coming out when it comes time to vote and somebody popping up that you've done something that you weren't supposed to do, and you know you did what you were supposed to do, the best thing to do is to protect yourself. So I want to emphasize, and again, until we determine, I don't even, I like what Celista said about things being recorded. And I think that if there was some kind of emergency that we needed to have a BIDA board member for some crazy reason, because even with the developers, sometimes developers, they get antsy and they get in a hurry and they want to answer yesterday, but we have a process here in College Park. So if you have a project and your project needed to be done 3 weeks ago, you needed to be 5 months ago initiating that project. We can't just drop everything and change what we do in our protocol ethically for you. So as the chairman of BIDA, that's what I'm requesting of our members. Now, you all can change this later, but I know that I won't be meeting and out of protection for each of you, I strongly suggest that you refrain from even the appearance of dealing with a developer. Anyone else have anything to say? It's not an action item.
I actually do. I can give you an example where a developer called me and said, heads up, I'm seeking an extension on our contract. And I said, okay, BIDA's handling it. And I disclosed it to this group that I'd had that conversation. And so I think—
Which one was that? Can you tell us what time that you did disclose, Mayor Broom? I'm just not sure what you're referring to right now.
It was last year, and I did disclose that to the group. And so the challenge that we have as elected officials is that sometimes there are dual roles. I know that Councilman Allen has had projects where people have discussed things that they want to do in his ward. So I agree that the general policy should be that we're not having these side conversations with developers. As elected officials, sometimes those discussions happen. When they do, we should be disclosing them to the board.
And again, I agree with you, Mayor, in terms of as elected official, you guys are in a different category. I mean, especially if there's a project that's being done in a ward, it's natural for a developer to reach out to the council person for that ward. That's the only respect, and so the council person may happen to be the mayor pro tem or yourself, the mayor. That would just be, if I was a smart developer, I would probably approach you and Ken Allen both if I wanted to do something in Ward 3. But it's not because I'm trying to get the vote on BIDA. It's just because
we ought to disclose that just so that you're aware of it.
Yeah,
we have a duty. We have a duty to disclose that, and we have.
Yeah, but that's, again, to me, that's just doing business. That makes all the sense. But for us who are board members, and we don't have a say so per se as the elected officials do, to protect ourselves, we need to refrain from even the appearance. Now, I mean, you can do what you want to do, but don't say that I didn't say so. Okay, so that was it. Does anybody have any questions about any of the documentation that was sent within this particular agenda item, development authority discussion? Okay, well then we're just going to move right on to Anita Brown. You have your hand raised still, so I was figuring that you didn't have anything else to say, did you? Okay, because I didn't want to move on. Well, let's go on to item 5B, BIDA City of College Park Protocol, which kind of is, we're segueing from where we were right now into to a discussion. And again, the purpose of this is just, let's get some clarification because it'd be great for us all to be on the same page. Let me see what my notes are here. Okay. So basically the purpose of this discussion now is to promote clarity on the relationship and the interchange between BIDA and council, specifically pertaining to development authority projects. It is my understanding, again, as far as protocol, and I think we've established that in our last item, that if a developer has a project, if they come to a BIDA board member, what are we going to say? You need to talk to our executive director, Artie Jones, about that, okay, or of economic development. So everything, as far as what I understood the protocol was that it begins with Artie. I mean, again, it could be something that comes to one of our elected officials, but they're still going to bring it to Artie. So it starts with Artie, then it goes to mayor and council, and then it goes to BIDA if mayor and council decides that it should go. Some things get squashed right at mayor and council. But if it makes it to us, it's because it's been sent to us by council. So is that not the protocol? Because can BIDA initiate a project without mayor and council? And maybe BIDA can, but the question is, should we? And remember, the purpose of this is for us to get some understanding, meaning, so if a project changes, once it gets to BIDA from what the mayor and council had determined it to be, what should BIDA do? Do we entertain that project and start even making a decision, or do we send it back to mayor and council for them to tweak it and determine what it should be or whether it should come back to us? I'm asking a question, but I already kind of have an answer. So I'd like to hear from the board and even mayor and council, because this is why I'm bringing this up at a joint meeting, out of all due respect.
I think if you're talking about, minor changes, just a small minor change, BIDA can make that decision. I think if it is a drastic change over what we understood and what we sent on, I think it should come back to mayor and council, and that's just whether it is legally binding to do that or not, or maybe it's common courtesy to send it back. But that's why I had brought that up before, because when something does change, it's not what I looked at council, and it's completely something different. I would like to see it back at council so I can see what the differences are. So that's just my opinion.
Councilman Clay, were you getting ready to say? He was moving forward, I thought.
You can see me bouncing around in my chair.
I kind of was feeling you like you were getting ready to, okay.
Yeah, your perceptions are very good, Chair. Mayor and council is elected in the city to be responsible for the overall planning, for the overall zoning, et cetera, et cetera. I've always looked at BIDA in some ways as a cross-check. I don't expect BIDA to be a pure rubber stamp kind of thing. But like Councilman Allen said, there are tweaks that need to be made. A developer comes back and says, I need an extension on the inspection period, or, I've got this issue or that issue and with reconveyance, and I'm willing to do this or that. There are some manipulations that are, as Councilman Allen said, tweaks that go on. But if let's say the project that council passes on to BIDA is one that meets the zoning, or maybe we have changed the zoning to accommodate that project. And then all of a sudden, now that the developer has gotten the zoning that they want, they switch the project and say, oh, well, good. Now we've got this type of zoning. We can also do what we really want to do. I think if you change the nature of what's being done with the project, or if you change the terms of the project in a radical sense, like it's going to be a 3-year project instead of a 1.5-year project, things of that nature, very significant, as Councilman Allen said. Minor tweaks, that's the good cross check to it. You guys can dig into it. You can say, well, we think this developer has a really good reason. They're honest. Ed Wall has checked out the developer. It all makes sense. Fine. But when the purpose of the thing changes, the zoning of the thing changes, the owner of the thing, we approve it to do a project and the owner switches. The hotel says, well, I just sold my rights to somebody else and they're going to build the hotel instead of me. Well, maybe that's something that comes back to council on that. So that's my feeling about BIDA. But the other side of the coin is BIDA has some good work to do. Council isn't always the smartest person in the room. And you guys may catch something when you dig into it that you say, this developer, there are some question marks that we have. And you may send it back to council, or at least for advice. But so if you get the message, it's always good to have a cross check, but to change the whole course of direction, or to just go off and start initiating projects that council has never anticipated going into the city planning, things that aren't quite right for the zoning or looking for a loophole in the zoning, I would say, no, they come back to council for that.
Thank you. Councilman Carn?
And Ambrose, I agree with you. Obviously, any material changes need to come back to this body. Time horizons in particular are very important to this body. I kind of look at it as, the council being your Congress, more or less on a federal level, and BIDA somewhat of a subcommittee. You have subcommittee hearings to make tweaks and adjustments to something, to a bill, and then it goes to Congress, for them to take a look at it. But if there's substantial material changes, then you're sending Congress technically another bill. That's what we want to avoid. So just like he said, any material changes definitely need to come back. And but I think it's going pretty well. We have council members on BIDA as well as the mayor. So, it was put in place by the state legislature, and it was put in place correctly with good checks and balances. So we can all keep an eye on what's going on. And that goes both ways. We want you guys to keep an eye on what we're doing as well, so that we can all work in concert. And I would advise every member of BIDA to make sure you tune in to the city council meetings. That is very, very important. And it gives you a general direction in terms of what it is we're trying to do. Obviously, we're working in tandem, and goes without saying, we're hoping that our board members are going to follow our lead in terms of city goals as a whole body. So let's keep on the same page and keep up with each other's meetings. I'll listen in to BIDA meetings from time to time, and I'm going to make sure I tune in a whole lot more often. So, yeah.
And thank you, Councilman Carn. And let us remember that the reason that we are on BIDA, those of us that are not elected officials, is that we were placed on BIDA by the elected officials who serve on council. And we were not selected or nominated by our council members so that, we would do exactly what they say and be puppets, but because they had confidence in us and they felt that we could be reasonable people and make decisions. And so I think that, some things is just about accountability, mutual respect, and, kind of knowing where you're at. So I wanted to bring this up because there had been, a little conversation and maybe a little confusion And again, we did have a situation at our last, we did have a situation where something was changed, and it needs to go back to council. It doesn't have to be a law. Something doesn't have to be a law for you to do it. I mean, it doesn't have to be a law for you to not do it. I'm lactose intolerant. Okay. So I could end up, I could go ahead and eat all the ice cream I want to, but I'm gonna have a problem with, there's nothing wrong with ice cream, but I can't do it. And so, or I don't do it, or I choose not to do it. And so I think that sometimes it's not about necessarily what legally BIDA can do, but it's what can we do? Because we are a team, even though we have different positions, different ranks, we are a team, and we want to try to stay on the same page. And I think one of the greatest things about teamwork that makes the dream work is mutual respect and accountability. So that is what I'd like to emphasize, and transparency. Okay, if BIDA got something going on, why can't we send it? And it's different from what mayor and council had. So let's send it back, or let's send it over. Let's be transparent. So anyone have any other comments on that? This was just the relationship between mayor and council. Let's just keep it real. Let's keep it clean. Let's keep it respectable. And let's make sure that it remains mutual. We're on the same team. Okay, well, we're going to move on to action, not action item, but item C, 5C, which is our Business Industrial Development Authority Finance Report. And I want to thank Ed Wall and Althea Bradley for the extensive reports that you provided. You guys have gone like way beyond what was requested, but we want to thank you because we had not really had a financial report since November 2019 for BIDA. So I'm going to turn this over to Ed. I believe Ed is going to be making the presentation, but again, I want to thank you, Althea, for all your, just being on top of it. So thank you so much. Okay, and thank you, Ed. So Ed, it's in your hands. Tell us where we've been, where we're going.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sharing my screen. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
So I wanted to start with the budget of 2022. In College Park's financial records, BIDA is called the Redevelopment Authority. For some reason or other, that's the way the auditors identified you years and years ago. And so Redevelopment Authorities is what BIDA is. You can see the budget that I have listed there. We've got you 50% of the budget. That would be July 1 of 21 to December 31st of 21. And then the actual, what we did. And so if you can see the total revenues, 50% of budget is $1,711,000. We got $1,787,000 through the first 6 months. So we're doing great as far as revenues. Depreciation is an expense item over here. That's a non-cash item. It's depreciating the various assets that we have. It's a non-cash item. And so I don't have it listed as an actual. The auditors go in and make the journal entry. So it's nothing you can do to change or fix, but it's a non-cash item. Of the expenses, we had expenses budgeted of $1,080,000. 50% would be $540,000. We spent $312,000 through the first 6 months. So we have operating positive income for the first 6 months of $1,474,000. I wanted to applaud Artie and his team for the first 6 months of managing the expenses. You all have heard all of us at College Park talk about how COVID and the pandemic affected the revenues of College Park. Everybody was on a tight budget, and BIDA has done its part in managing the expenses and keeping it down. One of the big things that we do at BIDA is we hold property for the city. A lot of the property at the city is owned by BIDA. BIDA finance all of that property based on revenue bonds. And we've been trying to sell those properties. The biggest chunk is the 6 West development. We had budgeted $3.5 million of sales from land sales for FY22. And our fiscal year is July 1 to June 30th each year. We haven't sold anything through the first 6 months. We do have a contract with Southeast Capital, as you all know, for approximately $8 million. We do expect that to close in April. And we really need that, look forward to it. That's a big chunk that we need to get done and sell more property at 6 West and more property that the city may hold through BIDA. I wanted to focus down here the amount of money that the BIDA fund owes the other funds of the city. So BIDA owes currently $12,555,000 to other funds of the city. I've identified here which funds BIDA owes. And you got the electric fund, the arena fund, the water and sewer fund, and the general fund. The money that goes to the electric fund will then be paid from the electric fund to the general fund. The electric fund owes the general fund. And this $8 million, when it comes in, what has been planned for it is to be used to pay back this debt here. And we have for projected 23, we had 11 million in sales. 8 million of that, 8 million is included in that 11 million. That would leave 3 million. We have more than that identified as either contracts or letter of intent. And then we have 5 million projected in 2024. That's yet to be identified. We have much more detailed financials for all the revenues and the expenses. I have sent that to the chair just yesterday. She asked for the detailed information, and we can send that to you under separate cover. If you have any questions about that, what makes up the details. The main revenue sources are the pilot payments on the tax abatement transactions that we've done, the land rent agreements. When Gateway all around the GICC was first developed, the city had a policy to land rent for 30 years and then have the purchase price be an amount equal to 15% of the then value of the property 30 years out as a purchase price. And after a while, we sold some properties outright rather than land rent. So the revenues that you see coming in to BIDA are pilot payments, the land rent payments, and the APM charges that we charge based on a pro rata amount for people to use the APM station right next to the GICC.
Thanks.
Any questions, Madam Chair?
And can you actually, when you say, I want you to kind of explain to us in terms of when we say that BIDA owes all this money that we owe, 12,555,000. What does that really mean? Because what BIDA owes, BIDA's debt is not, am I not clear that BIDA's debt is still the city's debt? It's just BIDA holds it. So meaning it's still for property. I mean, it's not like we've gone out and we've just done a whole bunch of projects, because we've already established that we have not done any projects. We've just approved projects. So when we look at the debt, is that not still city debt?
But the city has a series of funds, like Coca-Cola is one company, but government is a series of funds. And so College Park has a series of businesses. It's got its general fund, it's got police and fire and road streets. It's got an electric fund, a water and sewer fund, a sanitation fund, and BIDA is one of the funds. And the debt that BIDA holds is debt that you issued at the request of the city. And the cash balances that you owe are over the years money that the BIDA various funds has received from these other different businesses, these other different funds, that it owes it back. And so it's not that you did anything bad, but it just is what it is. And it's debt owed from one fund to another.
I just wanted you to clarify that we just didn't, wake up one morning and just decide to get the city in $12 million debt, that we, again, we're on the same team.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Just to give you a little bit of history. So, BIDA was created by local constitutional amendment in 1978. And the purpose for BIDA to be created was, one, to be acted as an authority to issue revenue bonds on the behalf of the city to do capital projects. And secondly, to become a development authority so that you could do things that Georgia law allows the development authority to do that the city can't, like tax abatement, in order to attract jobs and employment. And so you all were created as a tool to be in the city's toolbox. And so you are operated like a department of the city. And BIDA has a budget, it's like the electric fund has a budget. And so we talk about BIDA as if it's a separate entity, but really Councilman Carn was great. It's like the subcommittee of Congress. You all operate a business on behalf of the city, just like Hugh Richardson operates the electric fund on behalf of the city.
Thank you so much. Attorney Denmark, were you trying to say something?
No, ma'am, I apologize.
Okay, I just, I saw your, I do have a question, since you're saying that we haven't brought in it, we haven't had any sales, any money generated for sales for 2022. What have we closed on the Ion project, that the land that we sold for that yet?
That's a Artie question.
Artie?
Yeah, that particular project is ready to close right now. You talked about the initial 0.87 acres. That
yes,
was
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. As you can remember, that particular project was a lease. It started out as a lease, but they have the option to purchase. They wrote us a letter back in December stating that they wanted to go ahead and close on the purchase of that particular property. So Attorney Dan Lee is drawing up the paperwork so that they can close on that property.
And is that going to come back to us for my signature?
I mean, for the closing, like any closings, you would have to sign the paperwork and everything. So yes, it would. Yes.
Okay. All righty. And what was the sale price, the final sale price on that project?
I believe it was a $2,000 per year lease or $25,000 cash for a purchase.
Okay, so about 25,000. Just kind of
Yes,
looking at, I know Ed was saying that we have the Southeast Capital, just kind of looking at what may be generated.
And then there's also, there's another closing, BAM, BAMM.
Okay.
They should be closing within, I think next week, if I'm not mistaken. And I believe that transaction was $437,500.
Awesome. Does anyone have any questions for Ed Wall? I know I just busted in, but does anyone have any questions based on this? This report is a very, very skeleton report, and that's why I requested the budget performance report, because this really just gives you just a very, very brief overview. So, in order to present that detailed performance report, we'd probably be here till tomorrow if we would try to do it for all of the years. But does any members have any questions based on what Ed Wall said or what you may have read?
I do.
Okay, Leslie.
Yeah, so I've only been on BIDA for a year and a half, and I don't ever remember us spending anywhere close to $12,500,000 for anything. So where does that debt come from?
It goes back years. When the 2 hotels were done in 2008, the Marriott Gateway and Spring Hill Suites, the electric fund loaned BIDA some cash money during the early years of the building of those 2 hotels. I think it was like $3 million. When the arena fund got created, before it was created, the arena was part of BIDA, and some of the funds loaned money to BIDA. There was a mixture of revenue bonds and cash that built the arena. There would have been money loaned from the general fund to BIDA to buy property that make up what 6 West is today. That would have been booked as a due to, due from when they did it with cash instead of debt.
Ed, can I add a comment onto that?
Yes, sir.
We bought acres and acres of land back from the airport. At one point in time, the city had, as I recall, over $80 million in reserve. And we spent significant amounts of that to buy back land from the airport that had been cleared, that had been paid for I think it was 80% by the federal government, 20% by the airport. And we bought it back, and that became part of 6 West and some of this other property that we have. That was taxpayer money. That was something that came out of the city reserve. So the city took a chunk of money, invested it in buying back property for the future, transferred it to BIDA, and we're waiting for that 300 and some acres to be sold. And we just sold a good portion of it, or about to sell a good portion of it, to 6 West. So we're, as my father used to say, in some ways we're land poor. And if we sell that appropriately and make a reasonable profit, where it sure looks like we should, given the economic situation and the way house prices and what have you are going up, I expect that we'll make a nice profit on that land. And it all makes sense. But right now, the city funds have had to bail out BIDA, in a sense, my language, because the revenue that was expected from sales of property hasn't happened yet. And if it had happened, those funds will be, and it does happen, those funds will be repaid. Is that a fair statement?
So, yes, sir. So Councilman Clay, a couple things. One, to add some hard numbers, we have approximately $30 million invested in 6 West. It's 330 acres, and the city's bought that property for about $30 million.
Thank you.
Secondly, we never quite had $80 million in reserves. It was never quite that high.
Well, some of it was in reserves, and yeah, you're right. Some of it was in buildings and what have you, in assets.
Right. Yes, sir. That's it.
We could have sold City
You still
Hall.
have a huge net worth. Right. You have a huge net worth based on assets, but our cash, the height of our cash might have been about 27 million.
Yeah.
Board Member Jefferson.
Yes, so my only question was, how often are these financial reviews conducted with BIDA? My second question is, how are we leveraging the debt? I know that it's taking us quite a while to close these deals, but what other revenue can be done to leverage that debt? I know that we're not into receiving parking lot revenue or anything of that nature as we do these deals, but it just seems that for us to carry that much debt and we having to go through several restructurings of the debt, what other avenues can be done to leverage it?
So each transaction that you all did, whether it was the FAA building, the public safety building, the arena, the GICC, the 2 hotels, 6 West, you always had a dedicated revenue source. So if COVID hadn't hit and you hadn't had the pandemic, you would not have had to do that restructuring. And so we did the restructuring because some of those revenues that were pledged that you used to pay the debt just dramatically went down. Car rental tax went down, hotel motel tax went down. The FAA building was secured by the rental rate to the FAA. That's how that got paid. The public safety building was secured by the car rental tax, $800,000 a year. That's how that got paid. And so one of the things that you all did, just like you're talking about, when the city negotiated the construction of the APM station that connects the GICC to the airport, it was about $8.5 million. And when the city did that, they didn't have a dedicated revenue source to pay it back. And the city worked at charging all of the people around the gateway a pro rata portion of the APM operating cost in order to get the money to do that. So they found ways, as you call it, to leverage revenues. And I'm satisfied there's more of those things that we could do, but each debt issue that you have, there was a business deal behind it with a dedicated revenue source at the time.
And then how often are the financial reviews done with BIDA?
So before COVID, we pretty well did it once a year. Once COVID hit March of 20, we started doing it with mayor and council once a quarter. And to my knowledge, this is the first time we've ever done one with BIDA.
Yeah, we requested in 2019 a quarterly financial report. The BIDA board did, but again, COVID happened. A lot of things got thrown off, and I think it would be beneficial for us to, have some type of report such as this quarterly, so that we can be aware of where we stand. We oftentimes close, we're a part of the deals being done, but we don't really see how those finances pan into the overall budget. Just think that as a board, every board that I've served on, we've always received a financial report quarterly and continue to be updated. And that leads me to the other question. I noticed in the city of College Park, just about, most of our organization departments, maybe we're a board, so this is different. But as we are now entertaining the budget for the 2022-23 year for all of our departments, I guess the question is, how does the BIDA board have input into the budget for BIDA for the year even for this year? Because what's happened to us, if there are things that we would like to do, we have to configure it in. And I know we're in a financial crunch, maybe in some ways, but we're still budgeting. We're still setting up budgets. And so I'd like to know how the board can have input in terms of at least let it be known some of the line items or what we'd like to have included to certain line items.
So I would answer that. Artie, as the department head, prepares the budget in conjunction with the city staff. It goes to mayor and council and they approve it. If you all as a BIDA board want to add something to that budget, I think you all discuss it amongst yourself, vote on it, and Artie includes it in the budget, and mayor and council judges whether to add it or not, just like they do any other department.
Okay. So that is a possibility. So in terms of, because we've never done that. So just would like to be able to. Okay.
I'd like to make a suggestion as well. In terms of just budgetary and BIDA participation in what we're doing. Me for one, I'm expecting, and frankly, I think all of us are expecting a lot more from our city, from our department heads. We've got our new city manager coming in. Mercedes has done an excellent job handling things for us. But one of the good things about a brand new year is you get to look at things from a different perspective. And one thing that I believe that BIDA can do that would be a big help to the council, not so much in terms of coming up this budgetary session that we're about to get into in the next week or two, but I'm expecting a lot more from BIDA. And when I say that, what I mean is this. We're all connected. We're all a big municipal family. We've got to find and we've got to look for some new corridors of revenue coming up in 22. And BIDA is full of a lot of bright and brilliant folks that care a lot about this city. I would suggest, and Ken, you're on the board, Mayor, you're on the board, but maybe you guys get, just have a few brainstorming sessions, and we want to look for new avenues and things that maybe we haven't thought of from the stuffy political standpoint, and see what you all can come up with in terms of some possible new revenues in terms of hospitality, development, and have a brainstorming session and send those ideas up the flagpole. Here's the thing, ideas, they come from everywhere, and you want a lot of communication so you can get those great ideas. And if you guys see a possible revenue source or avenue that would better this city, hey, don't be afraid, but bring it on out there on the BIDA board when you have your meetings. So I would suggest there's a lot more we could squeeze a whole lot more juice out of this lemon that's BIDA with some of you brilliant people on this board to help us. because we're not geniuses and we don't know it all, contrary to popular belief, believe me. But if we work together as a team, we may be able to come up with the revenue source that's a blockbuster for 22. So I would definitely suggest be thinking about it, be talking about it, be discussing it, and don't shut down any potential ideas, but you all discuss them as a BIDA body, and you never know, you may come up with something. You'd be surprised if you start brainstorming and talking about it, but you have to be open enough to be creative enough. And, you know, most of the stuff may be duds, but you never know. You may stumble upon something that's the, just the holy grail of ideas for development. And there you go. So.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Allen, you're muted.
Yeah, one thing, when Ed gives his presentations to mayor and council, you learn an awful lot. I've learned so much in the past 2 years from Ed. Gosh, I hate to say that, Ed, but I've learned a lot from you. But you've explained it, I guess, where I can understand it. I guess that's a better way to put it. And it's easier to understand. It's easier to see where the city is. It's easy to see where the money comes. So maybe when we do have the sessions where we discuss in council, then maybe BIDA could listen in and make sure that they hear what's going on as well. Just put out the word that, hey, council will be explaining, the budget. Ed will be explaining that to everybody on such and such a date. You all listen in, and maybe we do set up as a BIDA group that we set up, that Ed comes back and answers some of our questions and explains it to us again, once or twice a year, something like that. So he just does such a good job explaining where we are and where we've been, and he knows the history. So that's my suggestion. The more you find out, the more you learn.
That's a great idea. And that's another reason. So normally budget is discussed, isn't that during the workshop session? Is that when when is that held in the council meeting?
We have separate budget hearings, and they'll be taking place in a few weeks. But as Mr. Wall said, we have him come in on a quarterly basis to discuss where we are. And I think it's certainly, as Councilman Allen said, it's been extraordinarily helpful. I think that it would make a lot of sense to make sure that the word got out to the BIDA board that those quarterly updates were happening. And even when we get through COVID, because there will be a point where we do, I would love for that to continue. And I think that it has been very, very helpful so that we can just keep an eye on things, no matter if they're going poorly, well, or we're staying the same. It's imperative upon us to make sure that we are the best financial stewards that we can be.
Thank you, Mayor. And I was asking about the when Ed does his report, is that normally done? Because is it done during the regular meeting or is it done during the workshop session?
During the workshop.
Okay, so that's what I just wanted to, because we were suggesting that the members watch the city council meetings. And so we just need to know if we can be notified again when, I guess I'm asking our executive director to notify us, the board, or let myself know when that's going to be on the agenda, so that those of us that want to watch the workshop session can either go to the meeting, their public meetings, or we could, if we're still filming it on Zoom, I think we probably will still be televising it. We could watch it. But also, I want to strongly suggest to everyone that as these budget hearing sessions are coming up, that you attend those and see what's going on financially with the city as a whole. So we still want a BIDA report. We want to report for BIDA, but I think that if we can look at it in the BIDA in the context of the entire city, which was that 111-page report that we received, basically showing us the whole cities. But we also need to have this information for ourselves. Did anybody have any questions on the actual budget performance reports, which broke down the line items in greater detail and mentioned line items that are not on the initial report?
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
Just wanted to let the BIDA board inform you that we will have our financial update on February 21st at 6 o'clock. The auditors will be there to present our 2021 ACFR, that's the annual comprehensive financial report. So, and Ed Wall as well will be presenting the city-wide financial update for the second quarter of fiscal year 2022. So I would advise everyone to attend the 6 o'clock workshop meeting for both the audit report and the financial report.
Tell me that date again, Althea.
February 21st.
Okay. Ooh, what a big day. Okay. That's my dad's birthday. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. So February 21st, everyone. And if our executive director can send us some type of notification just to remind us before that meeting that that's going to be going on, we appreciate that. Did anybody have any questions on the detail? Well, there's the performance report, and there's also the detailed general ledger report, which breaks it down even deeper. I know I do have just one question about one particular line item that stood out to me, Althea and Ed, and maybe I don't know who can. Okay, so in 2019, in our fiscal year ending in 2019 and the fiscal year ending in 2020, our legal fees were $120,000. I mean, that's what we had budgeted. That's not necessarily what we paid out. I think we paid out $141,000 fiscal year ending in 2019. Then in 2020, we actually did $104,000 when we had budgeted $120,000. Then I noticed that the fiscal year ending in 2021, the legal fees have been cut all the way down in the budget to $60,000. Was there, what was, I guess one question is, what was the reason why those fees were cut in the budget? I mean, you probably it's an easy answer, but what is that going to be for this upcoming year? Have we restored that amount? Where are we with that?
Artie, can you help with this question? It's the expense side of things.
Okay.
So
the only thing I can say, I'm sorry, the only thing that I can say
the
about
question is legal fees. Where are we at for 2022, the year ending in 2022?
So if I could already just answer, so because COVID hit, we cut everything back as much as we could. So legal fees got cut, budgeted, and we asked everybody to try to charge less if they could. I don't think the FY23 budget's been made yet, has it, Artie?
No, I think she's referring to 2022 budget.
This year,
this year's budget.
Right. So 22, the budget I'm saying of 60 grand, it was budgeted for less because we had to budget everything less. We had to save money.
Yeah, and I believe in 2022, we budgeted $75,000 for legal. I believe to date, we may have about $42,000 in legal expenses.
And not to necessarily bring that out, but that was one thing that I noticed that kind of stood out to me that was kind of cut in half, and just was wondering where we stood and where we're going with that. So it was just, does anybody have any questions for Ed or Althea regarding the financial report?
Well, since I have another question, since you brought that up, Madam Chair, with the legal fees. So explain to me, who is BIDA's attorney? I understand who the city attorney is, but who is BIDA? So is Dan Lee our separate attorney? How does this work? Because I know that we refer to both.
Well, Dan Lee is the BIDA attorney.
Okay.
He is the attorney for the Business and Industrial Development Authority. We do also use the legal sometimes of the city for doing various things also. There's been situations where we were acquiring, where we were doing quiet title process on various properties so that we would have the clear title for those properties. That's more of a long-term type deal. You know, they might take anywhere from 6 to 9 months for that to happen. But there was a number of properties that we were, I guess, gaining full ownership of through quiet title, and they did things for us also. Right now, the budget is lower because we don't have there's not as much activity as going on, and we are not using, I guess the city attorney for anywhere, a lot of activities, legal activities.
So Artie, are you saying that if the city attorney does something on the BIDA end, that comes out of the BIDA legal fees?
Yes, if there's an activity that I ask the city attorneys to do, like there was 8 properties that we carried through the quiet title process, and it was properties that the city acquired. I allowed them to get us to the point where we had a clear title on those particular properties. If I have them to do work for BIDA, the BIDA fund has to pay for it because they did the work for BIDA. The things that Dan Lee is doing for us, I guess when I first arrived here, there was just a lot of real estate issues with a lot of the properties that we had already owned. And for us to sell those properties, sometimes we have to address various title objections and things of that nature. And that's what has happened in the past. But most of those things have already been addressed for the most part.
Okay, well, if there aren't any other questions, again, I want to thank our finance team, our director of finance, Althea, and our financial expert, Edmund Wall, for making the report and answering our questions tonight. And we're looking forward to becoming more financially literate regarding BIDA and the city of College Park. Like I said, I think this is going to help us even in terms of when we start looking at land sales and pricing and what we think is fair and reasonable, understanding also that we carry a very big debt. And although it would be nice to be nice, we also have to think in terms of how do we recoup? How do we, make up for so much that we lack? So at this time,
Madam Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry.
One last thing I would suggest on that same topic is, there seems to be a lot of curiosity in terms of for city functions, budgeting and operations. Now, our budget hearings start, I believe, is it the 22nd, Mercedes?
Stay.
I know it was the
21st.
21st.
Is it the 21st? So yeah, they start on
the
the 21st. Now, those used to be public meetings. I'm assuming they're still public meetings. But if you really want to see city functions in action and get an understanding of some of the whys in terms of how we put things together and why we're putting things together, I would definitely recommend that the BIDA board sit in and just have a listen to some of the different departments as they come in for their budgetary hearings. And that will give you a lot more understanding in terms of what BIDA is looking at and the expenses and things that we do look at in terms of cuts, why we're looking at them, talking to our department heads and getting the best assessment of what they actually need and making decisions on that. So it's very interesting. I know I used to sit in before I was on the city council and learned a lot about city functions and operations from sitting in on those public budget meetings. So I would recommend that if anybody really wants to get more information and get a knowledge base, which all of your BIDA board members do need. I guess that's as close as you'll get to executive session if you want to really get into the weeds of what we do on a month-to-month basis. So that's my recommendation.
The public budget schedule is on the city's website. So everybody's able to go on and see whose budget is being reviewed and on what date and what time.
Well, if somebody can, Artie or whoever, make sure the BIDA, I would suggest, make sure the BIDA board gets that schedule if they have more interest.
I will forward the schedule to Artie Jones.
Thank you again. Thank you all. Thank you. At this time, we're going to move on to agenda item 6, our GICC update. Denise, is that you?
Yep, it's me.
Hey.
So for the GICC, we had a few postponements for the month of January, but those events are going to take place later in this fiscal year. We did host Atlanta Centennial Classic. It was a gymnastics competition. And then we had some great bookings. We booked the Aerotropolis Alliance, Atlanta Alliance Career Expo, the Circle of Friends CEO Formula Conference, And then we also booked the Salvation Army, their seminary graduation. So we'll be hosting 3 graduations with them over the course of 3 days, and then Young Leaders Conference as well. Over at the Gateway Center, we hosted 3 home games for the Atlanta Skyhawks, and then we also booked an esports competition that will begin later this year as well. Are there any questions?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. Thank you for the report, and thank you for your hard work. Those 3 games that the Skyhawks played, we won every single game. So it's been exciting. Those of you who have not been to a Skyhawks game at the arena, please put it in your plans in the near future to attend. Our team is doing really well, and we won today. So
yes. And the next game with them is on Saturday. They do have a home game on Saturday as well.
Black History Month game is Saturday. So yeah, just this is ours. This is our home team. So we can be proud. We can be proud. Thank you so much. Anybody have any questions for Denise before we move on to our economic development reports? Leslie?
I have a quick question. Yeah. So along the lines of Joe saying we should be thinking about ways we can bring revenue into the city, what are is there an idea of the number of people the arena can hold and what the rent is for various events if we come across people that are looking for a larger space?
Yes, the arena can hold, depending on the seating capacity, we have fixed seating for 3,500 and we can do 5,000 on the floor. But any inquiries for rental of the arena, please just refer them to me. And either myself or one of our teammates will follow up on those.
Okay, so there's not a range that we know that if we know what someone's budget is? Because I think for something, I think it's intimidating. I mean, and you may not be able to say, but I think it's intimidating to think that a company or something might be able to host something in the GICC. You know, that's just kind of, they wouldn't even approach it, but is something better than, sitting empty?
Yes, our rates are very competitive. It's competitive rates.
I have a question.
Councilman Gay?
Yes, when she talked about the bookings at the arena, are we getting the universities and Clayton County graduations this year?
Yes, we are hosting Clayton County graduations. Those graduations will be held at the GICC, and we're also doing Fulton County over at the Gateway Center Arena.
Do we get Spelman back?
Unfortunately, Spelman opted not to come back this year. They're going downtown, but we are still holding future dates. Actually, 23 and 24 are still under contract with them.
Leslie, is your hand still raised? Do you have another question, or is that just still up on the screen? I don't want to move on without.
Sorry.
No,
I'll take it down. Sorry.
Okay, no, I just didn't want to move on without acknowledging. Okay, so at this time, we're going to move on to our economic development. Is that Renee first, or?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll be giving the Maine and Virginia Business District report. For the month of January, we had 1 new business, and that is the kitchen area inside of the College Park United Methodist Church. We have a ribbon cutting coming up for the month of February. On February 22nd, Lotus Body Lab, which is located in Michelle Faulkner's building. It's the very far right space, Suite 101. We'll be hosting a ribbon cutting for that new business. We decided to do a Love Local campaign this year for Valentine's. We had a donation of $150. So we will be collecting all of the entries. Please vote for your favorite restaurant or boutique or coffee shop in the Main Street and Virginia Avenue program area. And all of the entries will be placed in a drawing. And then the first place will receive a $100 gift card to their favorite location. And the second place will receive a $50 gift card to their favorite location. And if you haven't seen my email today, Wi-Fi is live on Main Street. You can reach the College Park Wi-Fi connection. It is named College Park. So if you ride downtown from Rugby Avenue all the way to Harvard currently, you can get on that Wi-Fi at no cost. When you open up the link for the Wi-Fi, it'll ask you to hit the login button, and it just takes you to the city website currently. And then from there, you can scroll to any website that you would like to. There were some issues with adding the poles to some of the metal poles. So the area from Harvard all the way down to John Wesley will be live within the next few months. And we're just waiting for some additional hardware to make those active. And so we have Wi-Fi. So the businesses are very excited. And we're just happy to offer this to our visiting community and as well as our business owners. On the last slide, I have some upcoming events. Our next College Park Main Street Association Board meeting is Wednesday, March the 9th. We're having a spring cleanup this Saturday from 8:30 to 11:30 is the CPMSA time, but the College Park Women's Association on Main Street, they will be from 9 till noon. There will be pockets of cleanup all over the city. I know Old National has a team. I think they're meeting at the Tracy Wyatt Rec Center. The Main Street group will meet at the depot. So Barrett Park has a group. There'll be people cleaning up the community all day on Saturday, which is amazing. And then we have a spring wine stroll coming up. And yes, that does say St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. We'll have some fun things planned for that evening. We will have live artists outside painting while the wine stroll is going on. We will also have jazz on the lawn at City Hall. Michelle with the Recreation Department is working on that as well. So it will just be another fun night downtown College Park, in addition to our fall one that we'll have in October, excuse me. And the last thing, our Tri-Cities Mixers will be coming back March 31st. Our first one will be held in the city of Hapeville. If you may recall, East Point, College Park, and Hapeville did a monthly event. It's a networking event. The businesses absolutely loved it. So the 3 Main Street managers, we decided to bring it back on a quarterly basis to start off because COVID is still looming. And so we're gonna start it off, and Hapeville was the first location, and it'll be coming to College Park shortly after. So if there are no questions, that is the completion of my report.
Are you gonna talk about your assessment?
Okay, we have, we're gonna go with Councilman Allen, then Councilman Clay, and then Councilman Gay.
I just wanted to make sure she tells everybody about the assessment. She went through her assessment and congratulations, did a great job.
So on this week,
yesterday.
So every year, the Main Street, we're a part of the National Main Street Organization. And then for Georgia, we fall under, of course, the Georgia DCA. And so the Office of Downtown Development, they have instituted a couple of years ago, a rotating basis of communities proceeding in person. And so this year was College Park's year, and I had to give that presentation. And it was live. We had several board members attend. 2 councilmen were in attendance, and we actually had some community members as well. And it was very, very good. They were blown away by everything wonderful that's happening in the city of College Park. And I'm just so proud to be a small part of the bigger picture. So hopefully we should be getting a link. It was suggested to me from actually someone in the Economic Development Department. And then I think Councilman Clay made that same sentiment that we really should get it up on the website and possibly TV 23 so that people can know that, you know, the gentleman that was on from the community, I actually spoke at the HCPNA meeting on Tuesday evening, and he joined the meeting to do for the assessment. And he had no idea that we do all that we do and all that was going on in the city. So he even made a comment. So very proud.
Thank you, Renee. Councilman Clay?
Well, I was going to bring up the same thing. I just have to say that I think Renee gave one of the best presentations I've seen probably in my life. It was a lot crammed in. I think you took about a half hour, didn't you, Renee?
It was closer to an hour.
Longer than that. Well, she was so energetic, and even I, who have been sitting in on Main Street board meetings for years, I was amazed when you added everything up that we've done, and there are more good things coming. One of them being the Wi-Fi we just talked about. So congratulations, and I'm looking forward to getting it up on TV, and maybe you might come to a meeting here and there and give a subset of it to somebody. That's all I had.
Thank you. Councilman Gay, did you have?
Yes, Chair. So I had a meeting with my Main Street Board appointee who owns the College Park shoe store. And he gave me the update on the first meeting that he attended. And his comments were regarding branding of the Main Street, formerly Roosevelt Highway, to Herschel Road. And the takeaway he had was that the board members, especially the gentleman who owned the Kona Grill and the Ace Auto, he said they were very supportive. Now, the mayor and council, Ms. Coakley, unanimously voted to rename that section of Roosevelt Highway, and I think there was only one business that had a concern, but I think they've since resolved it, got their addresses changed. On first hand, it may just sound like a knee-jerk reaction that Councilman Gay had and got the votes for. That might be the first impression. It is so far from where what this is. I think we just all agreed that we want to try and bring in more revenue. I heard one person say we need to brainstorm. One person said bring more events into the arena that make the arena don't seem so intimidating that more people could use it. The idea of changing Roosevelt Highway to Main Street was only to bring the good work that you guys are doing further down, which is still appears to be a business district. The pushback that I've heard was that one, and this is from talking to numerous people, one, we added Virginia Avenue to Main Street, which, by the way, I think Virginia Avenue is strong enough to stand its own. In fact, I think it could outgrow Main Street, but that's another conversation. In other words, I was told that we added Virginia Avenue to Main Street. Two, the other concern that came out was that Main Street is too long. And I was told that, Renee, you told me that typically Main Streets are only so many miles. Well, we did some research, and to our surprise, there's some Main Streets that are, several miles or so. The third takeaway that was expressed at the meeting the other day was that I don't want to take on any additional work, quote unquote. Okay, that's fine, because I don't want any additional work either. But let's talk about how this can sell itself and what am I trying to accomplish and why did mayor and council unanimously vote on it? So there's approximately 5 parcels, Artie, Mr. Jones, that's approximately 5 parcels that's for sale. That if they were sold tonight, they would probably bring an additional $2 million. So what this sign has to do with that, Councilor Gay? What this change in the name has to do with these parcels? You know, have you ever thought that during the NFL strike, the owners of the NFL team came to the Gateway Arena and negotiated the strike? When they left, some people went out on Roosevelt Highway to to 285 or 85. So what's my point? When I drive up and down Roosevelt Highway every day, I see vacant lots. There's a sign that's down right by the GICC that's on the ground. It's a BIDA sign that was going to be a jazz club. I see CSX Railroad, which gives out hundreds of millions of dollars of grants, by the way. I see dense vegetation. I see litter. So what is my point? My point is that's a very strategic parcel for the city. It absolutely has nothing to do with Roderick Gay. What it has to do with is that, you know, unfortunately, and I close, unfortunately, Roosevelt Highway has taken on a different branding. As you go down, Renee, as you go down towards Wayfield, as you go on down towards Union City, because of the a lot of the car lots are down there. You got cemeteries that's unkept. It's just a different space than where we are at about Main Street. So my thinking was, you got what, $30 million airport that we may open the entrance. I think Gary Young told us in our tour, we may open the entrance, meaning you got thousands of people that will be coming out onto that street. I understand what I see, Artie, but I don't understand what they see. But what I want them to see is a vibrant street. And at a minimum, we're talking like, Ken, at a minimum, we talking about $50 banners. $50 banners to put on some poles. In fact, I've even thought I'd take some tape but let me be brief and say that it gets bigger than that. In fact, my vision wasn't even the banners. It just started with the banners. I even think that somebody need to get involved and contact DOT and change the poles. I mean, we got some of the most antiquated utility poles on that stretch of land. I go to some communities, even if you go down to Union City, trying to get to Walmart. I don't know how they did this, but DOT has just changed their whole trajectory of their strip. I mean, it's totally changed. And then their city went as far as to even put monuments on intersections. So my point is, if there's 5 parcels that could be sold because you invested in some banners, Artie, 2 more things that I want to say. I had a conversation with Januaryu. I said, Januaryu, we could even attract the businesses on the other side of the track and talk to the businesses in the hotel district. We could pull our money together and let them help. Gary Young said, Councilman Gay, I give you one further. What if you go so far as to anything that's built on Roosevelt Highway on that stretch, Renee, you put retail on the first floor, and then you start looking like some of these cities. I guess what I'm just trying to say is that it's not about the mighty Ward 4. It's not about Roger Gay. It's just me trying to add value. And when you're closing your minds and your hearts because I don't care about what he say, you miss it out on money that can put into your coffers and into your city. Now, one last thing I'm gonna say. I went as far as to reach out to the airport, Artie. I talked to Myrna White. I said, ma'am, maybe you could put banners to bring people from the airport into your parking lot. She says, you know, we never really thought of that. We are contiguous to the street. So then we could use our funds. So I guess I just want you, and then our communications director said, Councilor Gay, why don't you call it South Main? Why don't y'all get some money and hire somebody part-time and just let them focus on that area? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Gay, and thank you for your input on some of the things that we can do regarding economic development. I want to just thank Renee for giving that report. I definitely love all the activity and the creativity that we're seeing on Main Street. Main Street is definitely on the move, and I'm excited about the Tri-Cities mixers returning. When I first moved to College Park, those were one of the things as a business owner that I looked forward to. So just thank you again, Renee. And at this time, we're going to move on to our next report. Is that Tasha?
That would be me. I'm gonna.
Oh, shoot. Okay, righty. All right, okay.
There's one new business on the south side, DJ Auto Sales and Service. And then the Aerotropolis meetings are still happening each month on the second Thursday from 12 to 1:30 p.m. And those meetings are available via Zoom. And of course, right now we're at NLC VAD, which is the National League of Cities, Vacant and Dilapidated Properties. We've been here since Tuesday evening. We'll be arriving or getting back in Atlanta on Friday evening. Renee mentioned about the I guess a cleanup. There's going to be a cleanup on Main Street over this weekend. Also, there's going to be a cleanup on Godby on the old national side of town, also from 9 to 11 a.m. And everyone is going to meet at the Godby Recreation Center. The 6 West Auto Care ribbon cutting will happen on February 14th at 11 a.m. And that business is located off of Godby Road. Trees Atlanta will do a planting on April 2nd at 10 a.m. And those plantings will happen on I believe it's the south side of, it's just behind the police precinct, the property that separates I forget the name of the company, but there's going to be trees there that be planted there as barriers for sound. And then right now with the Aerotropolis CIDs, we have the Willingham LCI project that's actually underway. And that's it. Are there any questions about the south side of College Park?
I just want to mention that on, I think it's the 15th of February on West Fayetteville Road, they're going to have a groundbreaking. Summersby, I believe, they've been removing some trees, and I think they're going to have their groundbreaking on the 15th on West Fayetteville Road.
What I'll do is I'll get an invite out to the BIDA board and all the city council. I believe all the city council members should have it on their calendars, but I'll send an additional reminder out. But I'll send it out to the BIDA board also. The Summersby project, if you remember, is the project right on the edge of Clayton County and the city of College Park off of West Fayetteville Road. It's a mixed-use development, which includes over 200 units of multifamily and about, I think, 12 to 16,000 square feet of retail, and I believe some owner-occupied townhomes also. And that's just the first phase of the project. The second phase would be additional multifamily. But that particular project, the City of College Park Business and Industrial Development Authority served as a, what's the word, Ed?
Conduit issuer.
Yes. Served as a conduit. This is a tax credit program through the Department of Community Affairs. It'll be the first new multifamily on the south side in over 60 years. So it's a pretty big deal for the south side of College Park.
Mr. Jones, while we're on the south side, is there any update on the old Target lot on the completion of the demolition?
There's not an update at this time. I can provide that information via email to the city council in BIDA. Any additional questions? Thank you. I'm going to continue on with the economic development report. Keller Williams Atlanta Classic. They're the real estate company that's located will be locating in downtown College Park. Their plans are now under review, so that project should be starting really soon. As Chairman McKenzie was mentioning, we're working on FY 2023, the budget for the Business and Industrial Development Authority. And I'm going to send out the dates of when those meetings will be happening. I'll forward that to the BIDA board. And the 6 West marketing materials are actually now being revamped. They will have additional real-time information about where the development is right now with the construction underway for Road Street. But our those materials should be out, including an update of the website should be done within the next 30 days. Of course, Road Street construction and improvements are underway. And then the water well capping and removal, that's the water well that's located off of, located close to the Brady Recreation Center off of Roosevelt. That we received the bids for that. And we will be presenting those bids to the city council to go ahead and have that removed. And it will take about 2 weeks for that well to be capped and building demoed, and the equipment will be relocated to a location in the city of College Park to be either used in the future or to be sold at surplus, whatever the council would like to do. If there are any questions, I'm here to address them. All right, thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Artie. Thank you for sharing those reports for us. And yeah, I guess if there are no more questions, we will move on to item 8, other issues. Are there any other issues tonight before we go to executive session, our next issue? Okay. Okay, I want to have a point of clarification before we do move on to item 9, and that is apparently some correspondence was sent to one of our council persons regarding my organization being a tenant or planning to be a tenant at the United Methodist Church. And I want to clarify that to the board that my organization has no plans to move into the United Methodist Church, nor now or in the future. So I'm not sure where that miscommunication occurred, but we just want to clarify that I do not have any dealings in that matter, nor do we plan. Okay, so at this time,
Jamel?
Yes?
Did you have plans to move into that building previously?
No, we never had plans. We were asked. 6 months ago, we were asked to take on a clothing ministry that's already in existence there. And we haven't followed through. We haven't met with anyone to do this, and we don't have the capacity at this point. We really have a very large spread of projects planned out for 2022. And yeah, just to answer your question. Okay, so at this time, we're going to move into executive session, which is item number 9, and the purpose to discuss real estate. So I'd like to receive a motion from the floor that we will go into executive session for the purpose to discuss real estate.
So moved.
All right. Second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anita, aye.
Okay. All right.
Council, I'll take motion to enter into executive session for the purposes of discussion of real estate.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Clay. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Allen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Councilman Carn, you're muted.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, so I heard all 4 of you, so that is unanimous.
Okay, so at this time, we're going to move on to executive session. We'll wait on James.